My first example. As humans, we're very good at looking at big walls of images and picking out something of interest to us. We're used to finding that single face out of the 10,000 in the crowd. And so when it comes to displaying images, there's so many interesting ways of doing it. The example that I'm using here is something called Tag Galaxy. So I will type in a tag. Let's type in Taunton. I can spell it now. Try again. And this will go out to Flickr, this place where everyone puts all these thousands of pictures, and it will look for pictures that have been tagged as being about Taunton. So there's several Tauntons in the world, so we'll select Somerset. It will zoom into that planet, so this is basically bringing together all the information out there in a compelling way. And then ultimately, let's choose to actually go and look at that planet there. It'll go out to Flickr, and it'll put in all the pictures which are about Taunton and Somerset, and it'll display them in a way that it's very easy to see, pick out the thing which looks interesting to you. So we have here, and ironically, I noticed this earlier on. Is it still going to be there? I can't see it now. There we go. That picture there is there to taunt me, because that's a picture of the fire-cooled pump house where I stood on a nail earlier on today. So it's ironic that shows up on this thing here. And another example. I don't know about you, but I never really got the scrolling thing on the web. I can't read content when I have to keep scrolling it. I like to print it out, I like to see it in front of me. So in a way, I'm quite backward in that sense. And so there's been a big growth recently in really rich, interesting magazines on the web. So, this is the world of Harry Potter. This is where everything moves and talks and does what you expect it to do. So this is a magazine called iGizmo, that being a geek I of course read. And iGizmo works as a magazine. You turn the page, it feels like you're reading, a printed magazine, but of course it's rich in a way that you can only do on the web. This is how magazines should be in the future. The adverts are dynamic, they move, the video does what you want it to do, you can dig in deeper, it's just a beautiful experience. And it's not hard to do. Ultimately, this is building on top of traditional publishing technologies that people are already happy to build media out of, and brings that extra domain of real richness to it that makes it a place you want to go and read and, discover the information. We then move on to this idea of the social side of the web. So we've heard a lot about social media. And again, this is the big, huge change which is driving all this stuff. So if I have a rich site which people talk about to their friends, I can get people to come and see what's going on. And so this whole idea of us all sharing information, of creating stuff, participating together, has an increasingly huge impact on everything going on the web. So we heard about YouTube, and the fascinating fact about YouTube is that there are 15 hours of video uploaded every minute to YouTube. So this just shows the huge volume of stuff being put up there. We also heard that it's not all high quality. Of course, my videos on YouTube are particularly high quality, but there's this big mix out there. But the point is, again, this is about the me experience. There's all sorts of things which different people are interested in that you can appeal to. Wikipedia asks the interesting question of why do people put things on Wikipedia? You always have to ask yourself, why do people contribute to the web? In some cases it's because they make money out of it, in some cases it's because they can share things with their friends. When it comes to Wikipedia, I consider it's because they want to show themselves smarter than everyone else. So it's this whole model of think about why people do stuff. Facebook is huge. Facebook's biggest problem is it's so huge, it's costing them so much in hardware to keep it all running, that it's eating into their money. But here's an interesting thing. Facebook might have started off with these Generation Y folk I was talking about, but the biggest growth now is outside of that age range. So if you look here, in March in the US, the over 35 membership of Facebook doubled. So again, we're seeing this influence which says maybe it starts off with a certain group of people using this, but as a social centre of gravity, Facebook has now got so big that people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, are using it as their principal form of communication. I talk to friends who I haven't spoken to for years, but I can now do that via Facebook because it enables it to be very easy. And finally, Twitter. We again heard about Twitter on the video, and Twitter is interesting just because it's growing so fast. So again, if you look at the graph there, you can see Twitter, doubled in March and just keeps going and bigger and bigger and bigger. In part, it's because of the fact there's lots of celebrities on there. So, Oprah Winfrey famously joined Twitter about a month ago, and now she's got over 1 million people following her on Twitter. Twitter's this interesting thing, which is I can talk, it's a one-sided relationship, which makes it very good to broadcast stuff. People can listen to interesting things you're saying and make decisions based off of that. There are people like Dell on Twitter who are driving very special deals. They'll say, here's a deal for the next hour. And only the people who follow them on Twitter get to see that deal and take advantage of it. But Twitter also is significant because it shows another big change we're seeing on the web. This has changed from the web of being static, the web of us participating, into the web of being about real time. So ultimately Google, as important as they are, only have a view of the web when they last went out and checked it. Something like Twitter has a view of the web about what is happening exactly now. And this is having a really interesting effect as we look forward on how the web works. So the great example here is when the plane crashed in the Hudson River recently. I knew within seconds that something was going on. I could see people I know saying, hey, this is going on. So-and-so just said they saw a plane crash. That was long before traditional media had a chance to do anything about it. And you can see the graph there which shows the spike of people talking on Twitter about the Hudson plane crash. Famously, the first picture of the plane in the Hudson River was uploaded to Twitter within minutes of the plane crashing. So again, this whole idea that we can participate, we can share media, we can contribute this, we can do it in a much more real-time manner than it used to be. And the right there you can see that I did a search yesterday for Taunton. It's interesting to see Avon and Somerset Police at the top there on Twitter appealing for witnesses, very quickly after an event's happened. So already all sorts of different organisations are realising the best way to talk to people in real time is to use something like Twitter. And actually, if we look out to the web in 5 years' time, there's lots of talk of Web 3, of this thing called the semantic web, the idea of something called the giant global graph. And so Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who invented the web, is talking about this global graph. And what they're really saying is in the future, you'll have a smart agent which goes out and does things for you and makes your life easier. But already the web is getting smarter, and the thing making it smarter is us. It's the fact that I can start typing a search term in now, and it will drop down and show me the likely search term I'm looking for, and I can pick it from the list. There's things like natural language. There's something released this week called Wolfram Alpha, which is this natural language search engine, which makes it easier for you to ask questions and get the right answers back. I mentioned how diversity is important, how we all view things in different ways. And so another example of what's going on the web is this idea of giving people lots of information and lots of ways of joining it up together and letting them do it themselves. At the intro we heard Kevin talking about mashing things up. This whole model which says, I'll give you some bits and pieces and you'll mash it up, you'll join it in a way which makes sense to you. This chart here shows something called Many Eyes, which is a project from IBM, which is about giving people all sorts of interesting bits of data, all sorts of interesting ways of visualising it, letting them do that, and then letting them share those results with other people. So in the bottom right there, you can see Obama's inauguration speech visualised using something called Wordle. You can see interesting trends coming out. People compared that, for example, with Bush's inauguration speech. You can see the difference in language between the two presidents. And here's my current favourite example of a mashup. It's Tampa Bay mugshots. And what this is doing is it's taking information published by the police in the Tampa Bay area, and it's joining it up to give you an interesting insight into who has been charged in Tampa Bay in the last 24 hours. Now, here's the sad admission. My wife and I, we have 3 kids. We've been together 20 years. Our Saturday nights maybe aren't quite as exciting as they used to be, and we've taken to sitting in and playing Guess the Crime. So you sit there and you think, oh, and it's so I commend you, go and look at Tampa Bay mugshots. Interestingly, this site is actually brought by one of the local newspapers. So again, this isn't the police force themselves doing it, it's the newspaper understanding that their local people might want this sort of information, mashing it together to give something which is useful to just a small number of people and me.